大家好，我是文森。This is where I come from. It's called Litang Village, or at least this is how local people used to call this place. In 2012, the university I'm working in established its campus and gave the place its new image. If it was a movie, we would call this the shot, what is in the frame, the foreground. Facing our campus, we have the relocation housing, where villagers from Litang village moved in. It is the background of the newly built neighborhood, the background of many newly built cities and towns in China and in the world. High-rise, anonymous housing. If it were in a film, we would call this the reverse shot, what we see from our campus. But today I would like to talk about what is outside the new development, outside the frame, a village which doesn't belong to this image of modernity in which the place dressed itself up. A village that looks like what Litang used to look like. It is outside the shot, it is invisible, it is the off-screen. Where are we? This is Wenzhou in 1984. On the north, next to the Ojiang River, we can see the historical downtown that maybe a lot of you knows already. On the south, the agricultural plain built around the Renretang River. Wangjai village is one of these many villages built along the river. This is Wenzhou nowadays. Beside the Sanya wetland in the middle, all the plain has been urbanized. Its agriculture and its village have been demolished. Its landscape have disappeared. Wangjai village is at the edge of the urbanization footprint, which has been moving south, east, and west for the last 40 years, filling every available land and threatening now the very existence of Wangjai. In the modern city, we usually call the urban fringes with the term suburbs. The first project of planned communities were built in America urban fringes during the second half of the 19th century. In the anti-urban and individualist society of the 19th century America, these communities were offering the illusion of living in the nature away from the presence of other individual and human beings. The famous community of Riverside, designed by Olmsted, the landscape architect of Central Park in New York, embodies that ideal. Its curvilinear plan both mimic natural form and also allow each other to be hidden from another one. This form of housing, following Arcadian ideals, was defined by low-rise housing and low build density, not so much an intermediary form between the city and the countryside, but as an utopia to give the urban population the illusion to live in the wild. 2 centuries later, this ideal form of habitat led to the sprawl, this predatory form of consuming the land, destroying nature by pursuing the illusion to live in it. In America and in Europe, the individual will for everyone to live surrounded by nature led to the destruction of it. French geographer Augustin Berg described the suburbs as a model that kills the very object it's aimed to provide its inhabitants. American land artist Robert Smithson looks at the suburbs as an environment under construction, as the backside of the city, of its off-screen. In a series of pictures documenting his exploration of Pesek in New Jersey, he gave this informal landscape an artistic value and described suburbia as a zone that encompasses the large cities and dislocate the country. Suburbia literally means the city below. It is a circular gulf between the city and country, a place where buildings seems to sink away from one's vision. When I started to teach in architecture in Wenzhou King University several years ago, the first thing I did was to bring our students to learn about their own informal landscape, their own suburbia. Walking around the campus, looking at vernacular architecture, historical villages, industrial landscape, and the natural settings. In the first day of their studies, they try to give this city below some legibility and see what could be learned from, in terms of architecture, from the detail of the buildings to the relationship between the building and the landscape. As part of a course in architecture and construction, we decided to look in particular to a village which is located next to our campus, as its proximity will give students the chance to go there as much as they need. By measuring the historical buildings, they learn about building types, architecture construction, the usage of traditional materials such as brick, wood, or stone, and the technique used in Chinese architecture and in Wenzhou architecture in particular. These gave the students a pretext to learn about architecture, construction, and representation, but also a set of references as they had to design some building extension in the village. The studio triggers my students and I curiosity for this village, and with a team of students we continue to study this village in the following years until now. We discovered that, as with many villages around the campus, if the building didn't have historical value like a Qing dynasty building could have, for example, the village as a set of building had an architectural value. In the way they have used local material, constructing with the large-scale waste of modern construction, and how building have been slowly evolved during time, giving the village its architectural consistency, and giving us some example of adaptive reuse. Looking at the settlement itself and its relationship to land form, we could see that the morphological logic of the urban form finds its origin in the agriculture land pattern, itself related to the slope, direction for irrigation and drainage purposes, creating an organic continuum between the physical geography, the agricultural landscape, the village, and its building. This lesson in settlement that modern planners have seemed to forget is also aiming at the maximum efficiency, guaranteeing a natural drainage and avoiding floods of the buildings. It also embodies centuries of construction in Wenzhou, and through this history, it embodies Wenzhou culture. We presented our studies in different academic events, conferences and exhibitions, and also proposed preservation plan and design option based on our analysis. In 2020, we got invited to participate to the design of the Wenzhou Qin University campus extension on the village and try to argue for a master plan based on the Wangjai landscape logic that we have mentioned before. Our proposal has been developed with a landscape designer and is now the plan for the future of Wenzhou Qin in Wangjai for providing accommodation for students and faculties. In 2022, the urban area of Wangjai was planned to be redeveloped by Ojai District. We had a chance to present our ideas for preservation of the village. Our argument was based on the fact that the Wangjai population, having left the village gradually over the last 40 years, the building has been preserved in a state from the day they have been abandoned, giving us a history of the rural construction over the last 40 years. An architecture museum of Wenzhou architecture between 1960 and 2020. Moreover, this progressive expatriation of the Wangjai population and the transformation of their building into household industries embodied the recent history of Wenzhou. We try to follow a principle in the transformation of the village that embodies Wangjai ethos, and also a form of modern architecture. Enable more by doing less, and preserve as much as possible of the existing village. In the last 10 years, the rural has become the new playground for architects. Since 1912, Ran Koolhaas, the herald of congestion and intensive urbanization, and the architect of the CCTV tower in Beijing, changed his tune to have architects focus on the countryside, leading to an exhibition in the heart of the modern metropolis in 1920 in Guggenheim Museum in New York. Chinese architects have been critical in embracing this new design agenda and have been part of transforming the countryside into a gigantic touristic attraction. But the question we are facing this phenomenon is the progressive destruction of the countryside by the tourist industry, by the population who is striving to live for one weekend the Arcadian Dream. To paraphrase Augustin Berg, the touristic transformation of the countryside is destroying the very object it pretends to offer. Preserving suburban villages, as is the case for Wangjai, can offer us a new way, can offer us the same experience without the destructive dimension of mass transportation and mass tourism, as people can easily go to the city fringes, and it's a form of local tourism. This is where I come from. It's called Wangjai. It looks like what Litang used to be. 5 years ago, they started to destroy the village. They keep trying, but it's still surviving. Thank you very much.